I am really happy to get to share so many different exciting examples of digital innovation. And our next guest is James J. Kang of the Dreamery and PASTORIA. And he is a very innovative thinker and practitioner who innovates from deep experience in United Methodist Church ministry and shares ideas on how the church can be incarnational and truly love our neighbors in the digital era. So we're really looking forward to learning some insights from him.
Thanks so much, Hannah. I want to say thanks to Hannah, of course, Angelo for making the connect, Nicole for making it happen, Cheryl for getting this started whenever that it was, and others who I don't know. This is Passion Talks 2021, a real privilege and honor to be amongst these speakers. I kind of took a look at the speakers and what they were talking about, and for a second there, I thought to myself, really, do I have to go after that person and before that person? Should I really be in this kind of thing? But I really, really appreciate this opportunity. I feel like I'm almost at home amongst PKs, as well as those who are quote unquote digitalists, if you want to call ourselves that. I know that we have some time at the end for Q&A, but I really hope for a lot more LOLs. And for those of us who've been keeping track, I really think that I can get us back on the schedule. I want to start off by talking about a bunch of people who I don't know personally, but I really love what they are doing. And I want to start with Girl and the Word. Girl and the Word is girlandtheword.com, not the and. That's probably not going to get you to the website. You got to write out the and at first glance, and I can't, I really do apologize that my screenshots and the crops that I have really do not do justice to these websites at all. But at first glance, it's like a blog about decoration, and if you scroll down a little bit, she talks a little bit about, or she writes and blogs about what it was like to run a do-it-yourself wedding and all these kinds of things. And it kind of feels like a blog, and she talks about how also she decorated her mom's apartment and so on and so forth. But really at the top, as you can see there, is something called The Abundant Life, which I find to be super duper interesting. What is The Abundant Life? Well, it's a video-based series of guided meditations, much like the screenshot that you have here. Pretty much there's 30 of them, and you can get them all for a one-time payment of $90 or 6 payments of $15. These are meditations that, quote unquote, dive deeper into topics such as acceptance, perspective, identity, purpose, boundaries, and so forth. I'm just quoting from her description that she has there. And if you go to the website, you could get a preview of what it's like. And I have seen it before. I've never purchased it, but I've seen it before. And it's kind of like, to me, like ASMR for the soul or something like that. And she doesn't like look into the camera at all. She just talks as narration, as the shot or the picture is of her, like, as you can see, hanging up these potted plants or something like that. And it's just really at a slow pace and allows your kind of mind and your soul and your spirit to just kind of be guided into meditation. You probably already know him, but Nick Cho is your Korean dad. Yes, yours, because he makes that a really, really big deal. You can call him anything that you want, but he's really an internet creator. He's got 2.7 million followers. You know what I'm saying? He's got 2.69999 million more followers than where I'm at right now. And what he does is, as you can see right here, make a whole bunch of vertical form videos on a whole bunch of things. Like he has kind of an obsession with sneakers, and so he makes a whole bunch of sneakers video. Apparently his most recent one is some video about some kind of magic hat or something like that. It transports him to different places. He talks about going to the grocery store and buying really expensive produce. What does it really taste like? He brings it home and he tastes it, and for his followers, and the rest of us. He gives us a sense of what it's like. He also makes videos about really, really important things that are happening. For those of us who can read Korean language or Korean character, we can see that the Korean characters on his shirt right now says Black Lives Matter. And he talks about all different kinds of things. And Kim was talking about inclusion, and he talks a little bit about what kind of anti-Asian racism has been happening. He talks a little bit about what it might be like to be a member of the LGBTQIA communities and the rejection that they often feel, sometimes from the church too, but I don't think he mentions that. And how to help someone, let's say, when they are crying, and how to help them without making ourselves really the main character or kind of the star that's trying to help them when it is they themselves that are crying. And one of the things about TikTok that's a really cool feature or function is that people are able to send in videos of themselves watching another TikTok video. And Nick, your Korean dad, has shown people the kinds of videos that he receives. And in these videos, people are sobbing and crying because of the ways by which his own videos have moved them emotionally, and it has touched them and has affirmed them in some kind of a way. Grit and Virtue is a brand, in some ways a media brand. It's also a website. It's also a coaching service and a content library. I never really purchased into it, but it's for the modern woman. And Grit and Virtue was started by this person named Charlena. Again, I do not know any of these people personally, but in the description and in the stories that's written in the website, she says that she started Grit and Virtue once she had a God moment. And her own personal experiences as a woman and her ability to utilize coaching in order for women to be able to live kind of a full life, a quote unquote abundant life even. I don't know if she uses those terms, but that is what she is going for. And throughout the website, she never says that this is a ministry or something like that, but she mentions God and faith as a part of what Grit and Virtue does and what Grit and Virtue is based on. In my mind, all of these creators are ministers. They are in ministry. And they are in ministry, period. Some of them are more explicitly so, and others are not so explicit. But in my mind, they are ministries, because in my definition of ministry, it is pretty simple. It's enlivening the spirit. And the thing about these ministries as we have them now is that we might call them digital ministries, and through digital means they are enlivening the spirit. But I think we are in a time now, you and I are living through a time when this quote unquote digital label at the beginning can be taken off, and people can already understand what we are talking about, whether we use that term or not. And for a while, because all these people started a while back, it's not like they started last year or anything like that, but it became a lot more great that they did have existed for so long. They did not necessarily have like a good name. Like for a while, they might be called influencers or something like that. Oftentimes when they have to work for brands, or they might be people like the Grit and Virtue creating some kind of a brand of their own or a coaching service or something like that. But now, if you've been paying attention to kind of the Silicon Valley kind of driven tectonic shifts that have been happening in the American economy and the global economy, now they have a name. They are creators that are a part of what is really growing to be the quote unquote passion economy. Most notably, I think that term has been used by one of the co-founders of Substack, as well as the venture capitalist Lee Jin, Lijin. And they can just be considered as such, those who are creators in the passion economy, except that the passion economy is not something that is kind of neutral. It's not a neutral place. It's not a place where like you just You just on your own and nothing happens to you. There are dynamics within the passion economy that drive certain things or people or aspects or behavior into a certain way. And without going into all the things that the passion economy does or is like, what we can say in terms of ministry is that maybe for the first time in a very, very long time, arguably so, that the idea that every life is a ministry and every person is a minister has become like 110% possible. 110% possible. I was having a conversation with Hannah before about the Reformation and Reformations, plural, a period in which kind of things went in this direction a lot more. But now you can take it all the way. And if you look at all the examples that I had before, none of them are seminary educated people. None of them are ordained people. None of them has a blah, blah, blah church at the end of their business card or something like that. But they themselves are in ministry. And if I might say so, it's because every life is a ministry and every person is a minister. If you look at this graphic right here, I mean, the slide that I made right here, you might think to yourself, oh, what has this guy done? He has forgotten that you're not supposed to cut off the letters at the bottom of you got to put it on the slide or something like that. Yes, you're right, but I'm trying to make a point here, which is that if you think about it this way and you really focus on this kind of theology, you might think that you are really, really all alone. You're not. And I want to kind of coin a phrase called a congregation of one is what I believe that you are able to build. But in actuality, when you look at the bigger picture, if you say that every life is a ministry and every person is a minister, you do the math. How many people do we have? How many lives do we have? That's how many ministries that we can have. And that's how many ministers that we can potentially have. And if you show this to like Silicon Valley types, what is the next slide that often happens? Like right here, this is the next slide that you might see, right? Because as you see that, as a Silicon Valley type see that, they see scale, but not just any kind of scale, venture scale. And this is where I'm trying to make a shift in my presentation right now, which is that I feel like discipleship is at venture scale. The development of disciples as creators in the passion economy, and it's so funny how this is called passion talks. It's not, passion talks and the passion economy is not about a bunch of people who are dying on the cross or something like that. You know what I'm saying? It's about the kind of ideas that we can have. I think as we enter into the passion economy. And what I want to say is that as if we can consider discipleship to become venture scale, I wonder what it's like to have a venture spirituality firm. I'm almost done. A venture spirituality firm. Well, the first thing that we have to give a venture spirituality firm is a really cool name. It can only have 4 letters to it. It has to have numbers and letters. J316. You all know why it's called that for a venture spirituality firm. And if you did the comparison between a typical venture capitalist firm and all the activities that they have, and you compared it to what we have had as the church as an institution, I can almost honestly say that I really think that the church as an institution has been like a venture capitalist firm for people for a long time, except for one thing, and I'll point that out at the end as we close. Pre-seed investment, no problem. That's what we call baptism in the church. Every venture capitalist firm has a podcast. Duh, us too. It's called sermons. Venture capitalist firms want to push people through accelerators, founders through accelerators. We just call that youth retreat, where you better learn how to survive, maybe even make money, or you're not going to make it. And coaching and mentorship, sure, we have that all the time at campus ministry. Things that Angelo has invited me to, I see, are done really, really well. The lean method, where you have to do customer development and try and figure out if what you're doing is working at all. Yes, that's just called a mission trip. That's just called a mission trip, where you have to see if you have to, in the first day or whatever, make a pivot or not. And you're going to come back and you're going to have different ideas about mission, and see if the idea that you have about helping other people or being the presence of Christ in other people's lives is actually having the impact that you're wanting or not, and if it's affirming your theory or not. Evidence-based. Lastly, this is my most favorite part, but it's not the last thing that I'm going to say, is that yes, the church as an institution has an equity stake in people. It's a 10% equity stake. In the beginning, we put in the church as an institution so much money into people, we often don't really say pay up. It's funds that are provided by people who have the money, who they themselves faithfully give through their own 10% that they believe that the church should have, because that is what God wants. And it funds these lives, these young people's lives, for a long time. And we hope that all the staff people and all the activities and all the things that cost money would turn into kind of more love for God and more love for people, more so than when we started out in that time of human history. Except we find ourselves in a great time of decline for the American church. There's a lot of reasons for that. I want to point out one thing, which is this. A lot of times in the tech world, you have founders, and then you have people who over time fill these kind of engineering roles, let's say. I'm not trying to put any on any kind of hierarchy, but I'm trying to say something, which is this. Oftentimes in the church as an institution, we develop people to become like an employee in an incumbent corporation or a company in the industry. We call that a church. We say, be a good church member. Be a good a member that's a part of one of our committees. Maybe go through some of our Bible studies. Be a part of our small groups. Volunteer for community service. None of those things entail any kind of founding per se, unless maybe you're part of a church plant. But even then, it's about building what will eventually become an incumbent or based upon an incumbent model. What if we developed people to become An Lins and Nick Cho's and Charlena's, who ultimately make who they themselves become entrants, and not just entrants in the church industry or the church world, where they become entrants in the world at large. They become creators in the passion economy, and for that matter, any kind of entrance in any sector or version or slice of the economy. What do I call these kinds of people? I call them part of the CECI. Creators, entrepreneurs, change makers, innovators. I hope that we are able to make them. Properly pronounced, CECI, I think is called sexy. CECI. You see what I'm saying? Sexy right there. And so I want to end by saying that this is me. I consider myself a sexy venture spiritualist. I hope that if these ideas speak to you, you'll be able to connect with me and follow along with what's happening. But I hope that ultimately, what I hope is that the things that I have said is speaking to those that God is working to in this time, aptly named the passion economy. Dr. Eagleston, I hand it back over to you.
Thank you so much, James. Really appreciate those insights. And, this reminds me of how often Jesus uses the language of money and business in the New Testament. And yet he's also often radically reorienting that from how people expect it. And I think you've really done that here. And I really appreciate that. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.